Hey all, we're trying something a little bit different. We're going to react to 10 overhyped game consoles that failed. Now, a couple that I would go for is the Dreamcast, and maybe not necessarily a console, but Stadia. So before I hit that, tell me what you think will be number one on this list.
Mainstream game systems. And believe it or not, even going way back into the 1980s, there's a bunch of little ones too. But there's a sweet spot somewhere in between there where something seems like it's going to be big and it's not. Hi folks, it's Found.
Now, I would like to hit on this, like, if you're releasing a console or a game and you do not hype the crap out of it, what are you doing? You know, you need your marketing to be pushed. This game, it doesn't matter if it's not great, you need to get that out ting to make it better.
And today on Game Ranks, 10 overhyped game consoles that just flat out failed. Starting off with number 10, it's the Gizmondo. Alright, so
What the is a Gizmondo? Like, it sounds like an Italian married an Irish person. Gizmondo!
this thing was being developed by Tiger Telematics. Alright, so this thing was, it was a goofy looking little thing, right? It was actually...
Okay, please, if you've seen this console or you have this console, please do let me know. This handheld thing that I've never heard
developed
of.
in response to the Nokia N-Gage, which, I mean, we all know that meme, right? Now, this thing actually had a pretty big set of features. It was intended to compete against Nintendo's handhelds and Sony's handhelds at the time, and in truth, a lot of people thought, hey, this thing is going to be big. It even used a version of Microsoft Windows as its base OS, and there were rumors that Halo was going to appear on the device at some point. Apparently, it had the beef to do it under the hood. Bungie did ultimately
Apparently. I call BS on that.
deny that rumor, and that probably didn't help the Gizmondo. But that definitely wasn't the main reason it failed. One of the actual main reasons
Because it has a bad name, looked bad, and couldn't play great games.
was that several of the executives of the company that was making it, Tiger Telematics, were actually mobsters. And not like, are you talking to me type mobsters, like Swedish mobsters.
So friendly mobsters.
Not of the spicy meatball. The smorgasbord. I just want to apologize to absolutely everyone for that. Not just the Italian and Swedish people listening.
It's kinda
But
awkward.
yeah, it didn't work out at all once that information got out.
It does
The
look like
company
an
went
N-Gage.
bankrupt. At number 9, the meme, the legend, the N-Gage. So I mentioned it in the last point. The N-Gage was this attempt to make a phone that was
Hey, at least they were trying something. You know what I mean? They were pushing the boundaries, trying something a little bit different. If you didn't try it, you wouldn't have the iPhone today. You wouldn't have all these different things like the Android phone, and we're pushing these back. Like, we've kind of slowed down in their progression. These things are a little bit different and a little bit quirky.
also a good handheld video game console. And a lot of people really believed in it because it has a kind of cool look to it. However, cool look doesn't necessarily translate into comfortable or functional. You can tell by the look of it that the Gizmondo wanted to compete with it, but like, why? As a game console, it's
Money!
not comfortable to hold, and the buttons do not work how you want them to. As a phone, duh. Do I even need to explain why this is not a functional phone? A, uncomfortable. B, doesn't work well. You know, because it's a game console and it's shaped like a game console. But it's also got a phone keypad on it, which was also all the buttons for the games, which is also not a good idea. Companies were way in on the whole thing though. Like, you
Could have played Snake.
had big name games coming out for it. You had Spider-Man, Call of Duty, Splinter Cell,
Snake.
which was much bigger at the time because they were still making those. And they pushed the damn thing really hard, but like, it's the N-Gage. I said it in the last point, you know the meme. At number 8 is the PlayStation Classic, a machine that was hyped all to hell because of the writing.
Okay. Before he goes on, let's put this together. Nintendo, the NES and the SNES classics, right, play Nintendo games, which have aged very, very well in comparison to the PlayStation. PlayStation 1 games, like, they deserve their own memes. Like, they are blocky pieces of crap. Like, Tomb Raider, crap. Tony Hawk's 2, crap. SmackDown, Like they look so bad. They're so blocky. But you pick them up today and you feel just out of place. It just did not age well. But you play a SNES, ages very well. Mario still plays the same. Some great games like Donkey Kong. Like let's go. Like come
Of
on.
the wave of the classic console nostalgia explosion. You remember when that happened? The NES Classic, the SNES Classic, these things both did incredibly well, came loaded with games. People were stoked about them. They weren't able to keep them in stores. People wanted them so much. And Sony was like, oh my God, I need a piece of that action.
Like let's face it. How many times have you heard people going back and playing old classic Nintendo games? You do not hear too much people going back playing old PlayStation games. It's just not
And
a
if
thing.
they just delivered a package with a little more effort, they probably would have. It's not so much the build or the machine itself. It is the software, and by that I mean the OS, which is kind of crappy, and some baffling omissions in terms of what games they included. They also decided to run the games at 50 hertz rather than 60 hertz, so they were unresponsive and had terrible frame rates. I don't understand that decision at all, unless like it was originally just going to be a European product or something.
It's
But
a
that
money
doesn't make it
grab.
okay.
Money, money,
And also,
money.
did the PlayStation games always run like crap
Yes.
in Europe? If you're from Europe, please tell us.
But you
in the
didn't
comments.
notice because you were back then.
That's
It was like
distressing,
yes,
honestly.
best graphics
And number
ever.
7 is the Sega Dreamcast, a
The
console
Dreamcast.
that was hyped.
The poor Dreamcast came before its time. And I have to say, Sega Saturn. I don't know if you would say it was a failure. I'd have to really look into it. But not a lot of people had that Dreamcast or Sega Saturns as well.
All to hell. And this isn't about whether the console was good or bad, because up until this point, the reason it failed was the console wasn't super great. The Sega Dreamcast is not that. The Dreamcast had a load of amazing software on it. It was frankly perhaps the best console of the little
It was before its time. I'm telling you, it just didn't well because people were not ready for the internet. They weren't ready for it.
intermediate period where it existed in. All of the software was
Great
unique,
game.
innovative,
That's very fun
and
game.
ahead of its time. But perhaps that was the problem. Or perhaps it was the numerous mistakes that Sega had made throughout the 90s, not just having a successful console and letting it be, but constantly adding things onto it and then eventually putting out an inferior console that cost more. I mean, Sega really had not done well in terms of brand
Like did he says that brand recognition?
recognition by the end of the 1990s.
That's what I heard. Like everybody knows what Sega is. Like come on, especially my age. If you're 30, maybe 40, close to 40, you know what a bloody Sega is. And like they may have fell out of their console war, but when you talk consoles, you can talk Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and Sega. Let's face it.
And the Dreamcast wasn't exactly able to capitalize on goodwill, let's say. Also, they really put like tons of money into it. It almost bankrupted them. It is what forced them to stop being a console maker.
If you push the boundaries on things, sometimes you are the person that gets the bat to the head going through the front door. And unfortunately, Sega fell on their shield.
Advertised like crazy. I still remember 9/9 of 99 being the day the Dreamcast happened. And I still remember all of the time I spent playing Jet Set Radio, which was Jet Grind Radio back then.
That's pretty good.
Because of a trademark
Never played it
thing.
myself. I
don't know, there were a number of issues that were like that confused
Taxi
people.
Driver.
Where they promoted a game as called something, and then there was some kind of issue and it was called something else. Things just didn't work out for Sega. At number 6 is the NVIDIA Shield, which was NVIDIA's entry into kind of a low-level console that actually kind of ended up being the Nintendo Switch. Not entirely, of course. Nintendo obviously had a lot of really good design ideas that made the Nintendo Switch a unique device that merged
NVIDIA are like quietly like just conquering the gaming market with things. You just don't hear as much about them, but they're doing things.
two
doing
markets
things.
and basically exploded. But the processor, it's basically the same thing. Now, the Shield was like a better version of all those little Android consoles that came out, like the Ouya, which, by the way, stay tuned if you're interested in us talking about that one. This was actually, in my opinion, a better offering. However, obviously, nothing ever happened with the games market on there.
I never had one, and I never knew anyone that did have one. I wonder if they even sell it here. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog.
Because it's just too
Dogs.
fragmented. The Android market, the Google Play Store, it would have games for both.
Games in the Google Play Store still suck. they're so, it feels like so far behind. I just don't. It doesn't even feel like you're playing a game on some of the games.
Both your phone and these consoles, and obviously
I suppose it's definition of game. Thumb War is a game.
these things don't work, but there's also some weird
And I'd beat you all.
compatibility things where it seems like it's going to work and then it's not, and it pisses people off. And Google just didn't bother keeping up with their game market. I suppose Nvidia could have probably made their own game market, but didn't, I guess. They thought they were going to make a bunch of money off of game streaming as well. Having the Nvidia Shield stream games off of your PC. That did not happen, to say the least. Like, game streaming isn't even really taken off in a version of it that you don't have to set up all of the hardware yourself. People are not into it yet. It's just not happening.
Yet.
It's just a combination of factors that made it so, wow, nobody wanted one of these. And number 5 was the Nintendo Virtual Boy, which was a VR headset.
People still want these. This is a collectible.
That wasn't 3D. It was basically a 3D Game Boy, and
It's one of them nostalgia things. I think you just sit there. You would have it in your collection, but you
the
would not
games
use
were
it.
like that. They were definitely not impressive, to say the least. I mean, the best game on it was Mario Tennis, and it was not a good version of Mario Tennis compared to what we have today. I mean, the real
Is there a Mario Tennis today?
problem was not necessarily the hardware. I feel like you could have maybe done all right with it, although maybe a better
I don't really play Nintendo anymore. Too much anymore.
color
It's not
than
really my thing.
red for the screen would have been a thing. Like, the red and black really hurt after a short period of time. But, like, the only decent games, like I said, were like Mario Tennis. There's a decent 3D Tetris game. The 3D reimagining of the original Mario Brothers game was fun. But, like, there was just not a lot of games on the darn thing. And it was expensive, and like I said, the colors kind of hurt your eyes. I mean, I was a really easy-to-please kid, and when I tried one of those things out, I hated it. I outwardly just hated it.
I don't think I tried it as a kid. He's holding a Stadia controller. I think it is. I think it looks like one. I didn't really try it as a kid, but I have tried it as an older. Like, the VR today are good, but yeah, I can see why motion sickness never became a thing. But again, Nintendo back in the day were just hype trains. They loved jumping on, like, movies and jumping on anything, the cartoons, anything they could to, like, gather momentum, which worked. Like, they've stapled themselves as a company for forever, I'd say.
Did it. And I remember thinking, didn't they say this was the future? The future sucks. At number 4 was the Ouya, which, all right, so
Oh yeah! What the kind of name is that?
imagine the NVIDIA Shield, but not as good and funded by Kickstarter. That's
Are these just like Android controllers?
the Ouya. Didn't have the benefit of being attached to a large company with graphics cards that the game streaming thing could come out of, even though that didn't necessarily pan out for the Shield. That wasn't even something they could do. They had all the same problems as Shield had, a very limited store, and frankly, not a lot of games that really took advantage of the fact that it was an actual console. I remember thinking, oh, an Angry Birds machine. On top of that, they also really messed up in terms of delivering the product. Everybody who bought it got it like really late. It did not happen as they said it was going to happen, and they never really took any accountability throughout the process. Kind of just sucked the whole time. And number 3 is the
Oh yeah, bad.
Sony Ericsson Xperia X Play, which is, to be frank, another attempt at the sort of, it's a phone, but also a gaming handheld thing that the N-Gage was supposed to be, except it had the benefit of being designed well.
Has anyone done a handheld better than Nintendo? Or are you gonna come back at me? The PSP, the PS Vita. What do you think? Do you think that anyone can beat Nintendo when it comes to handhelds? It kind of feels like people have dropped out of the market for handhelds and just said Nintendo wins.
Now, on the other hand, being marketed well, not so much. You would think for something that people were so excited for that they would have put some kind of time into branding it as something that makes any sense at all. Because to be frank, I remember seeing this thing and going, oh, that might work. I like the dual sticks. I like you got all the PlayStation buttons. This could kind of be the Game & Watch version of dual stick gaming, right? Well, it was called the Xperia Play, which, what? Why wouldn't you pick something that has something to do with PlayStation? PlayStation phone. There you go. That would have been a really simple choice that made
It was called Sony Ericsson though. Like, Sony was writing the name.
it make sense. to
Sony
more people.
Ericsson,
But no,
Xperia.
like,
Like, you know what that is.
Xperia Play, it's going to be
Kinda.
so awesome. And to anybody who actually gave it a shot and looked into it, it's like, yeah, this could actually be pretty cool.
Sims was pretty awesome back in the day. I have not played Sims in forever, but good game.
They also delayed the release, kind of messed up any goodwill towards it. They also didn't release it in the United States, which, you know, is the place where it would have done well. I don't know, everything about it is baffling, and that's kind of, I think, why it failed. And number 2 is Google Stadia, which is not quite a console.
Number 2? I don't know, I think I put out number 1. It failed hard.
A platform, but we're counting it because, holy crap, it got so much hype. It was really regarded
Again, I could say before its time. We just don't have the infrastructure.
as like the next big thing in gaming. This could disrupt the entire console industry. This could be the next big thing, right? Nope. As it turns out, the internet is nowhere near good enough to play games over it in the United States. And when things didn't go so well for the platform, Google, apparently praised the internal game development studio they had founded and then closed it. You know, because that makes sense. Oh, you guys, you did so well. You're fired.
You did so well, but nah.
At this point, it's actually weird to me when we mention Stadia, when it's included
Okay, is it Stadia or Stadia?
in, the list of things that a game is releasing on. I'm like, really? Stadia? Why? And finally, at number 1 is the Wii U. Let's talk about why this thing failed,
Really?
right? Wii U
Number
actually
1.
isn't a bad piece of hardware. It certainly
It must have
isn't
fucking
up to
tanked
PlayStation
hard.
4 and the Xbox One, but it was released as an intermediate. Nintendo main draw was never really power, it's creativity. And to be frank, the Wii U is actually
It's a nice little machine. It has to be
a
said.
creative console with some great games on it. In fact, Breath of the Wild came out on the Wii U. That being said, they confused the hell out of people with this console. They did not make it clear that this was a
Steve,
new console.
favorite things.
Instead,
Playing
marketing
a
it
GameCube.
as kind of a more
Probably playing
Wii,
Smash Brothers, let's
Wii
face
but
it.
more, which frankly, so many people thought that it was an add-on for the Wii. Like the tablet controller, they just thought it was an add-on for the Wii, and no one got it. It sold horrifically, which is a shame, but at the same time, that failure really set the stage for an insane success in the Nintendo Switch, which
Nice.
also continued the development of their ideas from the tablet controller. Sometimes you gotta fall while walking in order to run really good. That's all for today, though. Leave us a
Really
comment.
well. Run really well. That's all from the Republic players reacting. If you like this, please do let me know in the comments, because I really know what kind of content you want. And like, share, do all them nice things. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We could really do with it. We're going a long time, and we'd like to know if we can keep going, basically. So thank